Okay, I'm really effing nervous right now, but I am just going to set a timer for 30 minutes. It always feels so awkward, like being like doing the first thing, taking the first step, being a beginner. I don't know. For some reason, with this, in this container, in this space, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of messing up. I'm terrified of saying or doing the wrong thing or failing at something that I think because I care a lot about it. I really care. I want to do well at this. I really want to do well. I think that's a lot of the fear behind this. I want to be good at what I do. I want to help a lot of people. I want to be accepted and be liked. I want to be good enough. I just want to be good enough. And I think that that's something that a lot of us want. Yesterday, I was on a Zoom call with some of my business friends, and I try to meet up a few times throughout the month with some friends that also run businesses because it's nice to know that you're not alone. So even though like me and my business friends aren't in the same space, it's nice to just like meet up with people, share your goals, hold each other accountable. And one theme that like revolves all the time that we always come back to is we are so bad at taking action and doing what we say we want to do and really going after our goals with like a open heart, full throttle. We stand in our own way a lot. And I know for me, that's especially true. I stand in my own way. I am like the biggest roadblock of all of my goals, especially relating to this, my business. And I think that's because there are no systems inherently in place for me to follow. There's not really a structure that exists. Like, yeah, you can try to replicate what other people have done and what other people have built, but building a business, and especially a creative online business, is so personal that it's almost impossible to remove yourself from it. I think that a lot of times when people try to replicate what other creatives do, that's kind of what goes wrong. Is they can maybe follow the outline, they can follow the blueprint, but they have to do that while being themselves. There's a lot of introspection, there's a lot of self-reflection, and there's a lot of like you under the microscope, especially when you're going to be the person presenting this information, whether it's somebody who's doing, I don't know, like real estate or somebody who's sharing recipes online. And something that I've discovered and has really come just like screaming out of the woodworks is I have spent so long trying to force my work into other people's systems. And I have been trying to create, I guess, like a workflow and a system where productivity is the product. And after a very insightful therapy session last week, my therapist kind of dropped a bomb on me and she said, you have ADHD, you are not a neurotypical person. So that means that you can't necessarily apply a neurotypical person's systems into your workflow and have that create results. And when I am kind of like steamrolling and pushing through and trying to make everything end in productivity, it doesn't work as well for me. And so she kind of challenged me to take a little break and be a little bit more curious and playful and have fun. What happened was something that I was not expecting. I ended up starting a snail mail recipe club, which came so out of left field. Like I didn't see it coming. That experience has been really eye-opening for me, and it's been so much fun and it's been so rewarding. My productivity kind of skyrocketed, and that was something that I wasn't really expecting. Productivity is not the product, it's the byproduct. That's what my therapist told me. Productivity is the byproduct of creativity, especially for neurodiverse people, like people like me with ADHD. I will go on Instagram, I will go on TikTok, and I will see my friends, I will see people I respect, I will see people I look up to, I'll see mentors, and they are just crushing it, and they are really just able to produce content in a way that I'm jealous of. It seems like they can just make a plan and do it. And to me, that just is like, how are you able to do that? I don't understand, because the second that I try to apply their systems to my process, it just takes all the fun and freedom out of it. And then what I'm left with, the final product that I'm left with that I created, feels so impersonal to me. It feels like it isn't even mine anymore. Like, I don't want to make a video of a cocktail to a Bruno Mars song. Like, that's not me. I can't just replicate viral trends. Like, sometimes maybe I'll be inspired by something and I can quickly whip something together and, edit footage in a way that might fit a moment of a trend, but I'm not like that. And I've been trying to fit myself into that mold for years now. Years. I'm not even joking. It's been years. Like, at what point do you admit it's not working anymore? You need to try something different. And so I got off this Zoom call with my business friends, and they were like, you know what? We need to just do something about this. We need to just take action and stop overthinking, and we need to just hold each other accountable and do what we say we want to do without overthinking it. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I got off the call and I got onto Reddit because naturally I had to research how people do things. I started researching because it feels uncomfortable, right? I'm a food content creator. And yes, I made a Yap video in May and it was a lot of fun. And I had a lot of fun sitting down, talking to the camera, connecting with you one-on-one like this. The second I start thinking about it, can I do this? Does this make sense? Do people even care? Why would I do this instead of filming a recipe? Wouldn't this hurt my niche? Is that how you say niche, or is it niche? You start just like going down the spiral of second guessing absolutely everything. And then what it does is it puts me into a state of like analysis paralysis and overwhelm. Then I just feel like, okay, well, I better get it right. So let me just go onto Reddit and let me see if other food creators are doing content like this. Why wouldn't more people be doing this, right? If this was like a good way to do business, which at this point, it just honestly feels like all I do is the opposite of what successful people do. And so that can't be good for business, can it? I went on to Reddit to see like, are other food creators, like, how are they using YouTube? And, honestly, I couldn't really find anything except people complaining that food creators weren't showing food anymore. Like, really, really popular people. They were calling them like sellouts. They were saying they're not even showing recipes anymore, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, damn, what am I doing? This is really a bad idea. And then I was like, wait, well, you have like 1,400 followers, which is not nothing. It's not nothing, okay? I love every single one of you that has chosen to be here with me, and I appreciate the fuck out of you. Really, like, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you for choosing to subscribe and follow along while I figure out what the hell I'm doing with this channel and what kind of community I want to create. But I'm not like a giant YouTuber who has sold out. I'm genuinely just trying to find my way right now. I'm trying to figure out something that could work for me. I talked myself out of that spiral. I caught myself there and I talked myself out of that spiral, and I was like, you know what? Don't compare yourself. There's a really great quote I saw from Eureka O'Hara from RuPaul's Drag Race. It was actually on the show We're Here on HBO. And she says, don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 30, either 30 or 13, I don't remember, but she was basically saying like, don't compare your beginning to like where somebody else is further down the road. That's something that I always try to remind myself of. I don't always do a good job of remembering it, but I'm getting better at catching myself. So I caught myself on that Reddit thread and I was like, no, let's just keep looking. And then I came across this thread. At this point, I'm just looking for evidence of people doing the thing that I want to do and seeing if there's like a way that I can make it mine. That's what I told myself at least, but it wasn't a good idea. Research wasn't a good idea. It's never a good idea for people who are neurodivergent, because all that does is we get stuck in like we get stuck in making the plan perfect. And we don't actually practice the thing when we're in planning mode. I was in planning mode and I came across this Reddit thread, and this YouTube creator was like, Do I suck at this? I've been doing this for 5 years now. I've got over 200 long form videos and I'm not monetized. I don't even have 5,000 subscribers, and I'm kind of worried that I'm not as good as I think I am. The comments, like, first off, it takes a really brave person to go on Reddit and ask to be analyzed by other people. The comments just absolutely, I feel like they obliterated him. I mean, like, looking back, I did go back later and see, like, were they really as mean as I thought they were? They weren't like super duper mean, but a lot of comments, and the top comments were like, you need to not have so much you on the channel. It needs to be more about the food. You could get to the point quicker. You could get to the recipe quicker. And as a food blogger, I feel triggered by stuff like that, because every day on Threads, there are people who go viral for saying, like, what's with food bloggers and the backstory? Just get to the recipe. And that is something I inherently disagree with, because to me, the recipe is a story. Okay? The recipe is the story. They're the same thing. Otherwise, like, why don't you just buy a cookbook? Even then, the author talks about themselves. They talk about their inspiration. They talk about why they chose those ingredients. Like, if you don't want a story behind your recipe, go with AI, or just get, like, I don't know, go to the flea market. Even then you're getting a story, dude. You're getting a story when you buy one of those old school notebooks with the spiral bound from like a school or a church. You're getting Aunt Madge's butternut biscuit recipe. Like, you're getting a story. That's the point. Go to Burger King if you don't want a story. I say that, but then, like, even I loved that movie, The Founder, about the guy in McDonald's. Like, I loved that movie. I love the story, but that's just who I am. I like to know about people's grandmas. I want to tell you about my grandma. I do tell you about my grandma a lot on my blog. And you know what? In my first issue of my snail mail newsletter, I talked about my other grandma, because I realized I hadn't talked about her much on my blog. So I dedicated that first letter to my other grandma. And you know what? I got pretty positive feedback from people who enjoyed that, because that to me is what we're missing these days, is connection and sharing the story, sharing the backstory. Like, if you want to make a hamburger and you're just looking for the best hamburger recipe, I've got bad news for you. It's going to take a little bit of digging, I know I just said that you shouldn't research, but we're talking about dinner now, okay? For me, when I want to pick a recipe, when I'm going to cook something and I haven't cooked it before and I might not be familiar with the recipe, the first thing I do is I start, like, looking at multiple recipes. I see who published the recipe. I go to their about page on their blog. Maybe if there's like a chef that I know who is known for a certain cuisine, maybe they're known for barbecue, maybe they're known for grilling. I know that that's a reliable source, and I know that I can probably trust their recipe. But if I'm starting from scratch, I want to make a hamburger. Let's say I don't know how to make a hamburger and I want to make a hamburger for dinner. I just got a smoker as a birthday gift and I want to know more about how to use it. So I'm searching, like, smoked hamburger recipe, maybe on YouTube, maybe on Google. I don't even know. Maybe I look it up on Instagram. I'm going to compare things. I'm not going to go with the very first thing that I find, because how do I know that that person makes something that I would like? It's like when I go out to Disney. Okay, there's so many Disney influencers, and there are a few that are really, really popular. They're popular because they go out to that restaurant like the day it opens and they order everything on the menu and they review it. And there's this one person, and I just don't look at their reviews, because to me, they have the palate of a toddler. One of my favorite mac and cheeses, they hate because they said it's like too textured or too creamy, or I don't even remember. Their favorite mac and cheese is one from a quick service location at one of the resorts. So I'm like, I would rather have Kraft, honestly, because then at least it's going to be fresh and not sitting under a heat lamp for 3 hours. You need to know your source. You need to know your source. And to me, knowing your source when you are getting a recipe means knowing the person who's sharing the recipe. So why would people be telling this dude to not show himself? Like, his personality, I feel like, is a vital ingredient in his video. I know for me, my personality is a lot of why I choose to cook something. That story behind it, my experiences behind it, how I use the ingredients, how I choose the ingredients, what makes what I do a little bit different than what somebody else does, why I enjoy it so much. All of these factors combine to then be a part of the recipe. To me, like, you are the absolute essential ingredient in that recipe. You can't be substituted. You cannot swap you out. And if you just do a video of making a hamburger, like, congratulations on being boring, I guess. Even in Cooks Illustrated and America's Test Kitchen, like, they have personalities. The people that are teaching you how to do things, they have personalities. That's what makes people connect. The sharing of the story, the connection, that is what matters. So I really don't agree with people who say, just give me the recipe. Look, I understand you are hungry, you're tired of working, you don't want to have to sift through a bajillion Pinterest pins that might be AI slop. You don't want to have to scroll through 18 Instagram videos to not get the recipe in the caption. But to that I say, spend some time building up a collection of recipes. Or maybe you need to spend some time getting to know new food creators and reading their blogs and doing your research and connecting with people. Or, just follow Bobby Flay and Ina Garten and call it a day. Because I guarantee you both of them have a hamburger recipe. And you can get to it on foodnetwork.com. The biggest thing to me about that Reddit thread was, like, I don't agree that people don't care about the creator. I think they do. I think that a lot of times we get inundated with a lot of information, especially when you can scroll super fast and find, a bajillion hamburger recipes. I think it's also really easy for people to put together shitty recipes. And I think that's why it unfortunately falls on the consumer to do their due diligence and really look at whose content they're consuming. Is it somebody who genuinely cares about sharing their story, sharing their passion, sharing their craft? Or is it somebody who just wants to be seen and go viral? We all want to be seen, I think. I think we all want to be seen and we all want to feel like we belong. I know that I do, but I also think for those of us who are choosing to put ourselves in that situation of being seen on purpose, we kind of have a responsibility to do our best and really try our best and put our best foot forward. And I know that that's what I do in my cooking content. I really care deeply about every recipe that I share. I mean, even something as simple as my espresso ice cubes post on my website. I really froze a lot of espresso to figure out the best way to do it and the best way to store it, the best way to not waste a lot of espresso by watering it down. And then, technically it's not espresso anymore. They're more like Americano ice cubes. But I digress. I really think a lot about this shit. And I really pour my soul into it. And I think that's why I'm so scared of putting myself out there for people to just tell me to get to the recipe and to not show myself, to not have a backstory, to not talk about the ingredients, because then what's the point of sharing? The story is the recipe, and the recipe is the story. And I think that's the difference in good food. I ate a snickerdoodle last night, and that cookie tasted like a hug. And that is because I poured my love and my soul and my passion into that cookie. That's the kind of food I want to create, and that's the kind of content I want to create. I set this timer for 30 minutes. It is approaching 30 minutes now, and if you made it this far with me, I really appreciate you. There's this creator that I love. They do Animal Crossing videos. They always say, comment Bob's gang if you made it to the end. So maybe we can do comment Patrick Starr if you made it to the end of this video. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear what you have to say. That's the whole reason that I'm showing up in this space. It's not to talk to myself, because otherwise I would just record this and then keep it in my camera roll, which I've done in the past. But in this instance, I am putting this on YouTube because I want to know what you think. I want to know what you have to say about this topic. Do you think that people should get to the recipe? When does that apply? When Doesn't it apply? Do you see the recipe and the story as one and the same? Or do you think food bloggers ramble too much? No, please don't tell me if you think food bloggers ramble too much. I don't think my little heart can take it. But I would love to know what you think about that whole conversation. Do you care about the personality of the creators that you follow? When you're looking for dinner, do you just want to get to the recipe? How do you find a good recipe? How do you find a good recipe when you're looking for dinner? What criteria helps you choose that a recipe may or may not work? When do you know this looks like a reliable recipe? I know I can trust this person. What criteria helps you make that choice? I'd really love to hear all about it, so please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. If you made it this far, comment Patrick Star.
Thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe.
Okay, see ya.